Everyone. Today I would like to give a short introduction of all AWS services. The first one we have under AWS services is compute. Under compute we have EC2 service. EC2 service is one of the main services in AWS Cloud. So what is EC2? So EC2 is Elastic Compute Cloud or Elastic Cloud Compute. So these are basically the virtual machines running in AWS Cloud. These are pay-per-use scalable platform for VMs, and it supports Windows, Linux instances, Ubuntu, etc. So EC2 is a service in AWS Cloud where we can uh, deploy instances or virtual machines which are Windows machines or Linux machines. So we can, if we want to deploy Windows machines, like just for an example, if you want to deploy Windows Server 2008, we can just use an image in the cloud and we can deploy the instance in a couple of minutes. So we can have we can install different types of operating systems, like we can deploy Windows Server 2008, we can deploy Windows Server 2008 R2, we can deploy Windows Server 2008, I'm sorry, Windows Server 2012. So in a span of few minutes we can just deploy virtual machines or EC2 instances in the cloud. So this is EC2. And the next service under compute is EC2 container service. So this is basically where we run Docker container at scale. So Docker it's a technology that allows you to build, run, test, and deploy distributed applications that are based on Linux containers. So this Docker is a technology which is mostly used by the developers for running the code. And the next service is called Elastic Beanstalk. So what is Elastic Beanstalk? Elastic Beanstalk is for developers who don't have any idea about AWS, and they can just upload the code to provision auto-scaling groups, load balancers or EC2 instances, etc. Developers can just concentrate on the code. So as it is mentioned here, Elastic Beanstalk is for developers again, who don't have much idea about Amazon Web Services. They can just put their code, and they can just put their code to provision auto scaling groups and load balancers or EC2 instances. We can talk about auto scaling groups, load balancers in the upcoming videos in depth. So this is again for the developers, who can just concentrate on the code to provision load balances or EC2 instances or auto scaling groups. So the next service under compute is Lambda. Lambda is basically a code which we upload in the cloud. So if we have any code and we want to execute it, we can just upload that code in the AWS platform without worrying about virtual machines or physical machines. So previously developers, though they have when they want to execute the code, they need the machines, virtual machines, which would have very high capacity of RAM or CPU. But in this case, what developers can do is they can just they can just run the code in the cloud and without worrying much about virtual machines or the physical machines. And the next service is Lightsail. Lightsail is Amazon VPS service or virtual private service. So this is again for the people who don't want to know much about AWS infrastructure, and they don't want to know how to create VPC or security groups. So they just so what we do is we just provide a machine to the user with some static IP address, and the users can easily connect and work. So they might be given the RDP access or the remote desktop access for Windows, and for if they want to access the Linux machines, then they would get SSH access to these Linux machines. So this light cell is for the people who don't want to know much about AWS infrastructure, and we just provide a machine to them with a static IP address, and they just would connect using RDP or SSH, and they access that machine. And the good feature about Lightsail is the best thing about Lightsail is they get access to the management console to manage these machines. So the people can manage these machines using this management console. So it is very user friendly. So under compute we have the next service, which is called Batch. This is basically for the users who would like to use the batch computing in the AWS cloud. It is quite simple. And the next main service in Amazon AWS is S3. We can call it storage service. S3 stands for Simple Storage Service, or it is also called S3. So this is one of the very old services in AWS Cloud, and it is a object-based storage. So what it means is we can create some buckets. We can create some buckets in the cloud. So buckets are basically it's like a container basically, where we can put some objects inside the buckets to store some information. So we have buckets in this S3 service, and we can upload those files inside the buckets that are stored in the cloud. And the next service is called EFS, or Elastic File Storage. So this is basically a network attached storage. So we can just create some EFS volumes, and we can mount those EFS volumes to different instances or virtual machine in the cloud. It is quite self-explanatory. And the next service we have in Amazon AWS is Glacier, which is very popular. This is an archiving service, and it is used for a very long time storage. So if the company has a lot of storage to if any company has a lot of data to archive, then they can use this Glacier service, because it is the best solution for them to store very large storage or huge data. And the best part about Glacier is it is quite cheap to store the data. It is not expensive at all. And the companies can store the data which is not being used for a long time. So if the company has a lot of data and they are not using it now, they can just move the data to Glacier, and they can save it there for a long time. And the next service we have in Amazon AWS is called Snowball. So Snowball is a solution to send large amount of data to data centers, instead of using wired internet line or Wi-Fi to transfer huge data. We can have terabytes of data imported into AWS data centers in the cloud. So what it means is, so if a customer needs to transfer a huge amount of data to AWS cloud, then it would take a very long time for the customer, especially if they are using a wired internet line or Wi-Fi. It takes a lot of time. So So this Amazon AWS Snowball, the best feature is the best part of Snowball is uh, we can just put the data in this Snowball. We can have terabytes of data move to Snowball, and we can send it to Amazon, and Amazon AWS would just import that data into AWS data centers which are in the cloud. So basically we can send huge amounts of data using this Snowball into AWS Cloud. And the next service we have is called Storage Gateway. So Amazon Storage Gateway is a virtual machine or instances installed in our customer data centers, and it would just replicate all the data to S3 in AWS Cloud. So AWS Storage, it's a virtual machine or instance which is installed at the customer data center, and this AWS Storage Gateway would always communicate, or it would just replicate all the data to S3 or the simple storage service in Amazon Cloud. So basically this Amazon Web Services Storage Gateway is used for backing up the data to S3 or the Glacier service in the cloud. And coming to the database, we have RDS, which is really famous. We have this RDS is also called as relational database service. This includes MySQL Server, PostgreSQL Server, and Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, and Amazon has their own version of MySQL, which is called Aurora. It is quite compatible with PostgreSQL and Oracle. And under database, we have a different service which is called DynamoDB. It is a non-relational database. It is not like the RDS, which is a relational database service. DynamoDB is a non-relational database. We can talk about this in depth in the next videos. So the difference between the relational database service and non-relational database service, we can definitely talk about it in the upcoming videos. And the next service is called Elastic Cache. It is a way of caching things which are commonly requested from the database server. So what Elastic Cache service does is if we are sending the same information to the database server all the time, this Elastic Cache would save the data, save the information, or cache the information, I should say, and it would just process the requests from the users without actually reaching the database server. This would actually reduce the load on the database servers by helping them to execute the other important queries. So the database servers can run their own queries instead of accepting these requests again and again, because if the database server would accept this request again and again, it would be a burden on the database server. So the Elastic Cache would just cache the information without processing the request, without sending the request again and again to the database server. And the next service in database is called Redshift. Redshift is a data warehousing service or business intelligence service. So this is the place where we run very complex queries to find out the information of profit and loss of a particular item in some particular region where we have our business. So if we want to find out the information of how much profit and how much loss we got for a particular item, we can run this complex queries, and we can find out that information. It's basically used for maximizing the performance and minimizing the costs. And the next service we have is the migration service. Under migration service, we have AWS Migration Hub. So what it does is, this is basically a tracking service. This will help us to track the application while we migrate them to AWS. It will it will integrate with the other migration services. So while we are doing the migration, this AWS Migration Hub would actually track. This is a tracking service, and this would always help us to track the application while we are migrating them to Amazon Web Services. And the next service we have is application discovery service. It is a way of tracking dependencies for the application. For an example, if we have SharePoint application dependent on SQL application, or it may have dependency on domain controller. So basically this application discovery service, it's a way of tracking dependencies for the application. It would automatically find out, like, if we install SharePoint application, so it would have dependency on SQL application, or it may have dependency on domain controller. And the next service we are going to talk about is database migration service. This is a very simple way to migrate the on-premise database into AWS Cloud. So using this service, if we want to migrate the on-premises data centers database into AWS Cloud, then we can use this database migration service. And the next service we have is the server migration service. This is a self-explanatory. This service helps us to migrate the physical and virtual machines from on-premise data centers into AWS Cloud. So if we have our private data centers, and if we have some servers which need to be migrated to AWS Cloud, then we can use this server migration service to migrate those machines to the AWS Cloud. And the next topic we have is network and content delivery. Under network and content delivery, we have VPC, which is quite a important topic. It's a very, very important topic in Amazon AWS. If somebody wants to write Amazon AWS certificate associate examination, and if the person wants to pass, then VPS is the best topic to concentrate, because most of the questions come from VPC. So what is VPC basically? So VPC, it is called Virtual Private Cloud. These are the virtual data centers where we can create firewalls, availability zones, network access control lists, route tables, etc. So it's a virtual private cloud. It is not physical. We are creating virtual data centers in Amazon AWS, and these virtual data centers, we can create virtual firewalls, availability zones, network ACLs, route tables, etc. And this plays a major role in AWS Cloud. And the next topic under networking and content delivery is CloudFront. So this CloudFront, it plays a major role in caching data at edge locations, so that users can access the data from their location instead of accessing data from a very far location where data is stored. So just for an example, if a user from Sydney is trying to access some information from a server which is located in Munich, he gets the information, but if a different user from Sydney location tries to access the same information again, then it would be quite inefficient for that user to reach the server which is located in Munich, because there would be a lot of latency every time the request has to go to the Munich server. So what CloudFront does is it caches the information in Sydney location, and if a different user requests the same information from the same region, then the CloudFront would just process the information from there itself, instead of sending the request to the server which is located in Munich. So this would really help in decreasing the load and increasing the faster response to the request. And the next service in Amazon AWS is Route 53. It's a DNS service. It's one of the important topics in Amazon AWS. It, it resolves the host name to IP addresses. And the next service we have is API Gateway. It is our own way of creating API to talk to other services. And the next service we have is called Direct Connect. Direct Connect is a way of running dedicated line from the customer data center to Amazon AWS Cloud to access VPC. So Direct Connect it's a way of running a dedicated line from customer's data center to Amazon AWS Cloud to access VPC. So if you want to access virtual private cloud, which is located in AWS Cloud, then Direct Connect is the right way we can access from the customer data center. And the next topic and then the next service we have is developer tools. Under developer tools we have CodeStar. So CodeStar, it is a way of helping a group of developers to work closely. It helps in project collaboration. It is quite self-explanatory. So it is basically a way of helping a group of developers to work closely, and it helps in the project collaboration. So this is CodeStar. And the next service we have is called Code Commit. So it is a place where developers can actually store the code. So this is also quite self-explanatory. And the next service we have is called Code Build. So Code Build helps to create the software packages that are ready to deploy from the code which is ready. So once we have the code which is ready, we can help to create software packages using Code Build. And the next service we have is called Code Deploy. It is a deployment service, and it helps to automate in deploying the applications to the EC2 instances. And we can also use this to deploy the applications in on-premise data centers. So if you want to deploy the applications on the EC2 instances, then we can use this Code Deploy service to deploy the applications. And if we want to deploy some applications in our on-premise data centers or customer data centers, we can also use the same service to deploy the applications. And the next service we have is a code pipeline. It is a continuous delivery, and it helps in automate steps to create a software. So it really helps to create some automatic steps, and that would take care of the process to create the software. That is code pipeline. And the next service we have is XRay. This XRay service, it really helps in finding out the root cause of the problems or performance bottlenecks. It is used to debug the application. So in Amazon AWS, if some application is not functioning properly, if there is some performance issue, then this XRay service would really help in finding out the root cause of the problems or the performance bottlenecks in the network. And the next service we have is called Cloud9. So Cloud9 is a place where we can actually develop the code in AWS console. It was actually a private company which was later acquired by AWS or Amazon. Yeah, so I've just given the basic introduction of all the services which are in AWS Cloud, guys. And in the next videos we can dive deep into each and every topic and discuss about it. So hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching this video, guys. If you like this video, please subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.